Eastern region may for our purposes be regarded as a rough quadrilateral, not exactly oriented, with the sea to the south, the Niger to the west, the Cameroon Mountains to the east. Within this rough square, there's a smaller square in the northwestern corner, which is rather more than half the size of the whole and contains about 2/3 of the population. This square consists of higher ground and has poorer soil and lower rainfall. This square consists of higher ground and has poorer soil and lower rainfall. It may be thought of as the Igbo Plateau, though it nowhere reaches a height of more than 2,000 feet above sea level. More than 98% of the people who inhabit this area are Igbo and speak one language, though of course with certain differences of dialect. There are nearly 5 million of them, and there are too many for the soil to support. As we begin to answer that question, let me be explaining it small. The first thing is that the land is about half the size of the region, but the population in that half is 2/3 of the region. Sure you are. It's math. I'm sure you are. So you have the people divided into 3. You have the land divided into 2. 2/3 of the people are in half, or about half, a little more than half to be fair, but about half of the land. So 2/3 of the people occupy half of the land. 1/3 of the people occupy the other half. And so the 2/3 occupying this half essentially makes it very densely populated, because eroti poju wala imasono shomi pojo kalo ni omi ti pojo kalo eroti poju lelo. That's one. Number 2, Ilebe only its poorer soil and lower rainfall. Ojo nro dada nbe, ashale wa nbe. Ma so mi fe so guys, so this is not no insult, no many things I go read inside this thing could be like insult. Now why they stop like this? I know they no be we're not fighting. And you should know this as Nigerians. And one of the reasons you know this is because understand your neighbors. A person cannot come to my space and tell me that he came there to develop the place because he's a developer and an investor. There are certain people who thrive on rhetorics that make them feel good because they know that the situation is actually terrible. But because you are ignorant of that situation, they have to put that thing in your face and say, I'm here to help you. Okay, you're not here to help me. You are here to take advantage of what's here. And guess what? I don't mind. But don't lie. You are here because there's scarcity at home. And I don't mind you being here. I want you to be, flourish. But this ego nonsense of, I'm here to help all of you, I came to develop your place, you are not all that. Especially seeing where you're coming from. More than 98% of the people who inhabit this area are Igbo and speak one language, though of course with certain differences of dialect. There are nearly 5 million of them. When was this? 1958. By 1967, there were 7.4 million. You find that in the record, the Addis Ababa speech by Anthony Naro, 12th of August 1968. By 67, they had become 7.4 million. And that's why when you hear this thing of 30 million people died during the war, 21 million people died, 12 million people died, you should be asking how many people were there. God rest the soul of the dead, may their souls rest in peace. But I beg, how many people they there with number they high like this? It's important to ask those questions, not out of disrespect though, but you must not be blackmailed as a Yoruba person, as a Nigerian, period. Don't be blackmailed. 5 million of them, 1958, and they are too many for the soil to support. This information is not, I'm not reading to insult anybody. It's going to tell you why the problems happened in the minority areas of the Eastern region, which is why I said that you can never have Eastern region again. The point is that the soil, like according to this report, there are too many for the soil to support. Why? 3 reasons. Number 1, the land is small. Number 2, of the available land, it's not all the space that is arable. In other words, you can't plant even though it's available. Okay, number 1, you know, plenty like that. The one we can't day, you know, if you plant, because not be everything you feed plant on top. Number 3, the one where you feed plant on top, not be everything they fertile. What I just said right now is in Zemiro's, Professor Zemiro's book, where he talked about, and it's also repeated by Joe Bokwe in 25 years after the Igbos, 25 years after the war. There is land scarcity of what's available. There's arable land, but it's not as much. Of what's arable, yeah, fertile land, but it's not as much. So the soil is not enough to support its inhabitants. Therefore, they've always had to import, especially when it comes to protein, which was one of the things that affected the whole area during the war. Because long before the war, there's always been a dearth, right? Scarcity of resources, scarcity of proteinous food. Let's get back to this. So it says, more than 98% of the people who inhabit this area are Igbo and speak one language, though, of course, with certain differences of dialect. There are nearly 5 million of them, and they are too many for the soil to support. They are vigorous and intelligent and have pushed outwards in every direction, seeking a livelihood by trade or in service in the surrounding areas of the eastern region, in the western region, in the north, and outside Nigeria. They are no more popular with their neighbors than is usual in the case of an energetic and expanding people whose neighbors have a more leisurely outlook on life. Okay? So again, you recognize the fact that they were vigorous, they were intelligent. If you're on TikTok, please spark up. Thank you. They were intelligent and they pushed outward in every direction. I read the document here the other day. It's because you need to go out. You've got to go out. Like, Omobile Sheri. So they have to move out. So it says, and they are no more popular with their neighbors than is usual in the case of an energetic and expanding people whose neighbors have a more leisurely outlook on life, which is why everywhere they go, there's a time I played a series of videos where the same ethnic group in Ibadan, sorry, in Yoruba land, let me not say Ibadan because they're in Lagos and Yoruba, they're in Ibadan. There's someone in Ibadan, there's someone in Lagos, there's someone in Okun, in Kogi State, in Edo, in Akwa Ibom, in the north. There's a statement they all say. Who knows what that statement is? Say the people of the land are just one word. They say the people of the land are dash. Who can fill that gap? Fill in the gap. Lazy. God bless you. They'll say the people, so they will move into your land and they'll say the people are lazy. The reason is that the people of the land don't have, and listen, let me also say this to Yoruba people who always have this thing to say, and look at what people are doing in your Yoruba land. You have to do, shut up. The thing is, it's my house. I have no point to prove to anybody. And I'm not doing badly. But I don't have to cut corners and do this and jama, and just hustle and just shout. No. Thank you on YouTube as well. I don't have to. It's home. You shouldn't be lazy. You get what I'm saying? So it's not like you are lazy. You are working, but because they don't see all the hustling, and immigrants naturally will do that everywhere in the world. You go to some places in the UK, you might be actually tempted to think that they are lazy. I mean, there are lazy people everywhere in the world. But this thing that makes you say that the people of the land everywhere you go are lazy, it's not about the people, it's about the fact that you have a point to prove back at home. So you are doing all this. So for I mean, if I say a set, I'm not mentioning the group, I won't mention, but if I say a set of group and I have a set of people from a particular group and I have videos who say something to Akwa Ibom people, to Edo people, to Yoruba people, to Northerners, and say they are lazy, they are lazy, they are lazy. I'm like, wait, are you saying that these people, how is everybody lazy? You're the only hardworking person. I even saw a video last week. I'll probably play it. I'll see, maybe I'll play it before we end today. I'm like, you're putting yourself on a pedestal saying, oh, everybody, South Africans, thank you, Ghanaians, everybody is lazy, but you are very hardworking. You have put yourself on a pedestal to make everybody seem inferior in quality to you. In actual fact, you are, and there's nothing wrong with your exertion of energy and trying to make ends meet, but you do that because you have a point to prove at home. They don't. It's their home. And that's why this man says here, this document says they are no more popular with their neighbors than is usual in the case of an energetic and expanding people whose neighbors have a more leisurely outlook on life. The region is thus in one respect similar to the Western region. On one tribal group is outstandingly the largest and includes 2/3 of the population. And again, as in the West, this is a vigorous and expanding community. The Igbos, however, differ from the Yorubas in that they are a village people. Again, I'm reading a document. I'm not insulting anybody. We're not fighting. We're going somewhere with this. So, this is when they insulted Yoruba. Actually, we didn't have this kind of insult. We have our own. They said that we're going to dominate the Western region. I read it. I even made a case for them, and I think it's a very valid point. And that's the only valid thing I saw in it, by the way. All those Sifa, ROF thing they are talking about, are we Sunni? So, that's why I always do West before I do East on these matters. May nobody go. It says Western region and Eastern region are similar because there's a main tribal or ethnic group. It says the Igbos, however, differ from the Yorubas in that they are a village people who have never gathered in large towns as the Yorubas have. And before the 20th century, had no large political organization of their own. There are no large chiefs and no record of any great kingdoms comparable with Oyo and Benin. There's an element of jealousy within the tribe between the Igbos of Onitsha in the north and those of Owerri in the south. But for all this, the Igbos are a singularly homogeneous and closely knit people. They know they're not homogeneous, by the way. The Igbo writer of this book said they are heterogeneous. But, I mean, it's also a good way to end it. At least at that point, they had already started creating this identity amongst themselves. Last week, I have the video, but I didn't play it because you won't hear a lot. You have to see it. Last week, the governor of Niger State and 2 other men were with the president, and they're sitting on the floor, kneeling down and that, and only one ethnic group in Nigeria saw a problem with that posture when it was put on social media. There's something I want to say. I will not say it yet, but I'll refer to what I just said right now when I'm ready to say it. When you see people talk, how can you be kneeling down to the president? Is he God? I'm like, where are you from? Where are you from? And by the way, that thing is not coming from self-worth. They are trying to make up for something. We'll get to that later. To the east of the Igbo Plateau lies the valley of the Cross River, which is fed by streams from the Cameroons, as well as from the plateau. This forms a broad vertical strip containing people who are not Igbos. Across the south of the region, from the Niger in the west to the mountains in the east, stretches a broad horizontal belt of swamps, creeks, and low-lying country. These 2 strips, the coastal belt and the Cross River Valley, together with a piece of country, the shape of a rather sprawling reversed L, which encloses the Igbo Plateau. In the swamp and creek country of the southwest, there is an area in which the predominant tribal group is that of the Ijos, who in this region number about a quarter, southwest of eastern region, also north southwest of Nigeria. Yeah. In the swamp and creek country of the southwest, there is an area in which the predominant tribal group is that of the Ijos, who in this region number about 250,000. We have already referred to the 80,000 Ijos of the western region. That's where there were Ijos in western region Tiwa. There are also Ijos in eastern region, but the ones in the eastern region are in the southwestern part of the eastern region. Okay. So he says we already mentioned the Ijos who, where is it? We have already referred to the 80,000 Ijos of the western region. Towards the mouth of the Cross River are the Efiks, who number 71,000, and the Ibibios, of whom there are 747,000. Further north on the Cross River are many tribes, intermingled in a confusing multitude which we shall not attempt to particularize. We heard of languages spoken by no more than 50,000 people. There are 17 major languages and some 300 of lesser importance in the region. You know why I tell you Bible that you have to understand the fact that other regions are crazy in terms of composition and importance of the video. I'm going somewhere with this, so why are we reading all these numbers? We are going to get there very soon. I may have to jump some things here because in the northern and western regions, the Muslim and European civilizations met in conflict with each other as well as with the African cultures. But the eastern region is almost wholly free from one of these complicating factors. The sweep of Islam across the Sahara Desert and along its southern fringes hardly touched the east, and the total number of Muslims is negligible. There are no more than 23,000 of them against 3,612,000 Christians and 3,580,000 animists. The influence of Europe, however, though not in a form in which a European can feel much pride, made itself felt from the middle of the 18th century. There had of course been still earlier contacts, particularly with the Portuguese, but that influence had not penetrated far inland and was already dwindling by the end of the 17th century. But in the 18th century, the regular arrival of slaving ships, of which many were English, transformed the life of the coastal belt, and particularly the harbors, such as Bonny, Brass, and Old Calabar. Here, the sale of a few slaves for trade goods might well turn a petty headman into a capitalist, who could command the services of a force with which he could obtain more slaves. So the point is, the Portuguese, the Europeans generally, they made contact with some Nigerians in the eastern region, but the people with whom they made contact were not those of the inland or hinterlands. So naturally, àwọn tó bá ń gbé bèbè òkun odò, àwọn náà máa pàdé àwọn òyìnbó. Show you. So, for instance, the òyìnbó would meet someone in Lagos before they meet someone in Ekiti. They will meet an Ishekiri man before they meet an Ife man, because those other places are inland, right? So, but the issue is this: the ones that were meeting ní eastern region, àwọn yẹn máa wọnú lọ kó ẹrú wá. See, by the time you understand this, you understand the reason for the problems they had in the 40s, 50s, and 60s, which is what is the main reason for the problems they're having in the South today. It's just that people don't talk about it. And that's why I'm also trying to make sure that I know you're very wise people. I don't have to go into the details. I don't have to go into the particulars. You can draw the inferences. And if you have questions, any specific questions, maybe I'll now explain better. But even then, I might schedule delay. So it says in the 18th century, the regular arrival of slaving ships, of which many were English, transformed the life of the coastal belt, and particularly the harbors such as Bonny, Brass, and Old Calabar. Here, the sale of a few slaves for trade goods might well turn a petty headman into a capitalist who could command the services of a force with which he could obtain more slaves. Thus, all along the coast, small chiefdoms of a new kind came into existence. They were more powerful, if less permanent, than neighboring chiefdoms inland, and wielded a political influence which depended as much on commerce as on military force, and which was personal rather than territorial or hereditary. The heads of these houses, as they came to be called, were middlemen resolutely determined to prevent direct contact between the people of the interior and the traders who came from the sea. The slave trade was prohibited by Act of the British Parliament in 1807, and although this did not make an immediate and total end of the trade, other countries were gradually forced by active pressure from the British to follow suit. The slave trade died away, but ships continued to come for palm oil and ivory, particularly palm oil. On the coast, conversions grew up. The captain of a vessel knew how much he had to pay as a kind of harbour due to the chief or duke or king of the harbour he entered, and how much he had to be paid as a kind of customs duty on each barrel of oil. He dined in state with the chief on his arrival. These chiefs they're talking mostly about the Ijaw, Calabar, the people, the folks on the coastal region, Bonny, those areas. So it's not, but it's still Eastern region, but it's not Igbos. But let's just continue. So it says here, the captain of a vessel knew how much he had to pay as a kind of harbour due to the chief or duke or king of the harbour he entered, and how much had to be paid as a kind of customs duty on each barrel of oil. He dined in state with the chief on his arrival, and between Africans and Europeans, there was some slight exchange, not only of goods, but of ideas as to clothes, food, and behavior. These exchanges may not always have been happy. Bad customs were exchanged as well as good. But the ship's captain on the whole left Africa alone. He made no attempt to convert, to teach, or to rule. The ships, however, were soon followed by missionaries, and the missionaries did teach. They spread up the Cross River, and today the highest concentration of literacy in the Western script in Nigeria lies in the Calabar province. Later, other missionaries went up the Niger and from Onitsha pushed out southwards and eastwards into the Igbo Plateau. Thus, the eastern region, which had suffered a heavy drain on its strength by the coming of the slavers, began now to draw a new strength from the books of the missionaries. Let me pause to ask a simple question. When it says here that other missionaries went up the Niger and from Onitsha pushed out southwards and eastwards into the Igbo Plateau, who led those missionaries? We want to be sure that all of us we're a history class and we're history students, so I want to be sure that we remember these things. We've talked about it before. Who led the missionaries up the Niger into Onitsha? G. Viral has given us a name. Is he correct? Is Samajai Crowther. Thank you. 1857 was the year. Ajayi Crowther was one who led the missionaries into it's called the Niger Mission, into Onitsha, and so on and so forth. That's the work that he did. Let's go on. Though there had been no great kingdom or indigenous culture in the eastern region, the coastal chiefs, who are the coastal chiefs? One we mentioned earlier, our Bonny, Ijaw, our side of the